Hey, and thanks so much for joining us for the Drawing for Adults class. This class is a partnership between the Ann Arbor District Library and the Ann Arbor Art Center. Today we're going to be drawing patterns in nature. So I'm going to talk about a variety of different ways to approach this topic today. My name is Peyton Cook, and I do these classes. Normally we meet in person at the library, but because of our current situation, we're just doing these classes online for now. So hope you enjoy the class today. So we're talking about natural patterns, and so that means that it's just patterns that are found in nature. So think about things like just symmetries that are found in trees and waves, tessellations, flowers, seashells, stuff like that. So rings in a tree, fish scales, and inside of a pomegranate, flowers, seashells. So here are some different examples, and what I want you to think about as far as subject matter goes, you can absolutely just go back and look through some of these images and press pause and draw from one of these reference photos. These are just images pulled from Google that you can look at and use. But I also would encourage you to go outside and look at some patterns that you can actually see in nature. Now, obviously, don't go and find a snake, for example, but look at a leaf and go and sit outside and just be in nature and be in the actual space of the object. And I really think that that's the way to do it. And if possible, of course, and sometimes it can be hard, and when you're doing this, I think it can be helpful to, like I said, be in the actual space so that you can, it's tangible, you can hold it, depending on what it is, of course, but, and zoom in, okay? So that's part of this project, is not just the pattern itself, but the idea of macro. So zooming in on the pattern. So not just focusing on the pattern itself, but zooming in on part of the pattern. So for example, like these rings that we see here, and just focusing on that. Sometimes when we think about plein air drawing or just drawing a leaf or a flower or something, it can be really overwhelming. But let's, instead of doing that, let's take a step back, and instead of having to draw the entire flower or the entire scene of the tree or whatever it is, let's zoom in and just draw a part of the tree bark, for example, or just the middle of the flower, just the inside. And I think that that will be a really important step. So I wanted to highlight this little Fibonacci sequence that is found in some parts of nature, and it's this mathematical equation that's really interesting. Honestly, I don't know as far as the equation itself. I am an artist, not a mathematician, but for those of you that are really interested in that, definitely do the math side of it. But it's really cool, and it's just this equation that describes basically the design, I guess, the way that the shapes kind of fall in some plants found in nature. So it's really cool. But what I really love about some of these images too is that you can really see this idea of the macro and zooming in. And so like this, for example, this is actually really detailed, but still zooming in and drawing this would be really great. And same with this too. So I find that this can also be a very mindful, kind of meditative approach to drawing or painting, when you just slow down and you choose to simply just draw the middle part of something, or just one part. Maybe instead of drawing this whole plant, for example, maybe you just draw one section. Maybe you're just drawing a few of these little leafy parts. Just the middle part of this pine cone. Okay, just a couple leaves on the side here of the artichoke. Okay, so here are some examples of some artwork that describes some patterns, some natural patterns. These are very different. These two on the right are some that I did of using colored pencils. I would encourage you to really explore this. I think colored pencils are great for this project, but you can really use a variety of media. I wanted to highlight Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia O'Keeffe was an American artist that did a lot of this idea of the macro. So zooming in on nature, especially animal bones or flowers. She was a modern artist, and really intricate, very beautiful paintings that described a lot of nature. So you would see shells, bones, flowers. These are both very warm color palettes here in these pieces. Here's some leaves and flowers. Kind of a New Mexico landscape behind here. And again, just really close up of flowers. So zooming in, it's a kind of a different angle. Now, if it's really hot outside and you don't feel like sitting outside, I don't blame you. Again, you can totally just Google a picture. If you like any of these pictures that you're seeing, I think that's absolutely fine. But another thing to do, if you like taking photos, if you enjoy the process of photography, or if you have a smartphone or a camera, go outside for just a few minutes and then take your phone or your camera and zoom in on a tree or a flower or something and take a photo of something in nature and really zoom in on a certain part and just see what happens. When you take that photo and see the kind of intricate details you might be really surprised. Now, zooming out a little bit, I wanted to highlight another artist, William Morris. Now, this is going back several years here, but William Morris, not a modern artist, but an artist that was still focusing on pattern and not so much zooming in, but a way of focusing on the repetition of natural patterns. So taking a leaf, for example, and then repeating it several times. And so creating kind of patterns within a pattern, I guess, if that makes sense. So really interesting way of doing this. So very different style, but I wanted to bring this up just for those of you that are interested in the idea of drawing nature, but maybe in a different way. So a very different approach. And then Jan Pointer is a different artist. This is a contemporary artist, so kind of giving you 3 different time periods here. But I really enjoy her work and the kind of sense of rhythm and movement that you really get from seeing her work. So I encourage you to look more of her artwork up on the internet and just kind of see what she has to offer. But a really unique experience that I think you get when you view her work, with a sense of pattern and just, again, that idea of the zooming in. It's beautiful. So when you start to create your work of art, definitely think about scale/size. And I mean that not just in terms of what you're drawing, but also how big your paper is. So if you are drawing, let's say, a flower, and you want to draw it really, really big, and you're drawing with colored pencils, if you start with a 12 by 12 inch sheet of paper and you're drawing with colored pencils and you want to get super detailed, well, you better get ready, because it's going to take you a while. You might be doing this for the next few weeks, because you could be spending a good 20 hours on this. So I would recommend starting with a smaller sheet of paper. Now, I would like you to think about your composition. Think about filling it up entirely so that you are going edge to edge, but also make sure it's balanced. So that doesn't, if you are sticking with that flower, for example, that doesn't mean it has to be perfectly centered. It can be balanced without being smack dab in the center. You could absolutely make it kind of off-centered and put the center of the flower, for example, a little bit more in the corner if you wanted. So colors. If depending on what you're using, whether it's colored pencils or something else, think about if you are choosing a flower and you pick the flower that, I'm not a flower expert by any means, but you picked the brightest pink flower, and then you look at all of the colors that you have, and there is no possible way that you can make that neon pink flower because you just don't have any colors that can do a neon pink flower. Well, you might want to pick a different kind of flower because you can't make that color, and if that's part of why you picked that flower is because of the color, it might be a little bit sad to realize that it's just not going to happen the way that you had pictured it. So do think about that as well when you're choosing what to draw or paint. Make sure that you think about the materials that you have before in your planning process. And of course, draw something that you like. If you don't like flowers, then don't draw a flower. If you really are interested more in seashells, then draw a seashell. Draw something that you enjoy. If you really like the idea of drawing something from life, but it's 95 degrees outside, then maybe see if you can take it with you inside. So anyway, have fun creating this. I hope you enjoy it. Just draw something that you enjoy. Use do a lot of sketching in the process. You don't have to make it perfect, but just have fun exploring the idea of just zooming in. Do several small sketches of just exploring different compositions of different layouts of how you could arrange it before you start adding color. And I hope you tune in next week. So this is more of a sketch kind of style as far as exploring what it means to do this patterns found in nature kind of style without really just doing one larger work of art. So for those of you that would rather just kind of do more of a study, more of an exploration and investigation, I want you to just kind of, look outside your window, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm looking outside my window and I'm looking at a tree branch, honestly. And so this is what I'm seeing. There's a tree outside my window and there's a tree branch right here. And so I'm seeing this tree branch, I'm drawing the shape of it in one of these little thumbnail studies. And then in this other one here is I'm looking at a close up of one of these little leafy things. And so I'm not a plant expert, so whatever this is called. And so by kind of dividing up the different, my page into these different sections, I can just zoom in on each section. So I can look at just the general shape of the tree branch and go back and kind of, now I'm adding a little bit more detail into the general shape, general texture that I'm seeing, but just kind of take a closer look there. And so I wanted to, I don't really, a lot of times when I'm doing these videos, I don't show much into the sketching process and I just jump right into the art making process. And I wanted to encourage you to spend some time in that sketching process. It doesn't have to be a full big project. It can just be a simple sketch. So now I just want to also take a look at the tree. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I know the bigger project here is zooming in, but I want to also zoom out a little bit. And I didn't really draw on the rectangle here, kind of framing it, which is fine. That doesn't really matter, but I'm just kind of looking because I'm really interested in the arrangement, I guess, of the tree branches as they connect into the tree trunk. So I'm looking at that, and then I start noticing these little places where there were tree branches, and so I start getting really interested in that. Because I don't know why, but I'm really interested. So that is something that I'm noticing more of an interest. So that's where I'm spending my detail, which is totally fine. So when you're looking at this, you can start to see the parts that you're going to find more interesting. And so when you start to sketch and you're like, yeah, this is not I don't find this to be interesting, then skip over those parts. Don't spend time on those parts. That's why sketching is important. So I'm looking at this and I'm finding that these are the areas that interest me. And so I'm spending more time shading that in because I'm drawn to those areas. So I'm just adding a little extra bark texture around it. And if I were to draw this on a larger scale, this would be what I would draw. So now I just want to show you some other works here that I could do. So here's a succulent painting that I've done with watercolors. Here's another painting that I did with acrylics of a lettuce leaf. So this is just something I had in my kitchen. So it's just a lettuce leaf, simple as that. So you can really do anything that you have around the house or around outside, your home, whatever you want to do.